Hey everyone, tonight we're stepping into the kind of place where your survival instincts might just get tested in the strangest ways possible. And no, it's not a jungle or a haunted house, it's a Roman bathhouse. You can picture it now. The heavy wooden door creaking as you push your way inside, and instantly, a wall of warm mist slaps you in the face, carrying with it the smell of sweat, oil, whetstone, and faintly sour wine. The air is so thick with steam that you can barely see your own hand in front of you, and the floor beneath your sandals is slippery like someone coated it in olive oil. If you're thinking this sounds like the setup to a weird reality TV show, you're not wrong, because inside these walls, survival wasn't about swords or shields, but about knowing how to act, where to sit, when to move, and how not to look. Like an amateur. And you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. And while you're at it, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now, because I want to know which corner of the world you're in while we step into this fog together. Now, turn down the lights, turn on the fan to some soothing music, and let's get going tonight. You shuffle a little further inside, feeling your chest tighten as the humidity wraps around you like a heavy blanket. The murmur of voices drifts in and out, echoing off marble columns, some speaking Latin so fast you can't catch a word, others laughing in a universal tone that says you're probably the punchline if you're standing in the wrong spot. You don't get to sit back and relax here. Not yet, because the bathhouse is more than a spa. It's a stage, and you are being watched. Romans came here to be seen, to display not just their bodies, but their status, their connections, their toughness. Imagine walking in and immediately feeling eyes on you, like entering a modern gym where everyone pretends they're not staring, but they absolutely are. You can't even make it 2 steps before the first obstacle hits. The heat. The walls are designed to trap it. The floor's warm from beneath, so it's like stepping into an oven disguised as a palace. The trick is pacing yourself. If you rush into the hottest rooms too fast, you're that tourist who runs straight into the sauna, passes out, and gets carried out by staff. Historians still debate whether bathhouses were truly open to everyone, or if subtle barriers, money, clothing, accent kept the elites separated from the common folk. What's not debated is the atmosphere. Steam so dense it clings to your eyelashes, condensation dripping down painted walls, and the faint metallic tang of bronze pipes hissing somewhere deep below your feet. And then there's the sensory overload. The scrape of sandals against tile, the splashing of limbs in cold pools, the squeak of strigils against oiled skin, and the faint notes of someone plucking a lyre in the corner, like the world's earliest Spotify playlist. It's chaotic, it's sweaty, it's overwhelming, and you're just trying not to slip and crack your head like some tragic entry in the daily Ramon failure scroll. Speaking of slips, here's your first weird fact. Some bathhouses were rumored to rub crushed snail slime into the grout between tiles because it made the surfaces gleam, though it probably also made them dangerously slick. You try to grip the walls for balance, but your hand just slides down polished marble, leaving streaks of condensation. It feels less like self-care and more like a survival game show challenge. And if you think modern spas are all about detox and wellness, let's remember that Roman baths were basically social media before social media. You didn't just go to wash, you went to network, gossip, get noticed, and occasionally get into trouble. Take Emperor Hadrian, for instance, who reportedly used the baths to size up both political allies and, let's say, companions, all under the fog of steam that made everything feel more private than it really was. You can imagine him sitting in a corner, side-eyeing new arrivals while attendants fanned him with palm leaves. And here you are, just trying to figure out where to put your sandals. Already, The space feels like it's testing you. Every bead of sweat that runs down your back is a reminder that you're in someone else's territory, and the unwritten rules are everywhere. Do you step to the left or the right? Do you dive into the pool or dip in slowly? Do you acknowledge the guy with too much body oil shining like a rotisserie chicken under torchlight? You don't know yet, but you do know one thing. This is just the beginning, and you'll need every ounce of observation, patience, and maybe sarcasm to make it through. Because in a Roman bathhouse, survival isn't just physical. It's social, it's cultural, it's psychological. And your first lesson? Never look too lost, or you'll be the entertainment for the night. You take a sharp breath as the steam parts just enough to reveal a doorway framed in cool marble. And without thinking too much, you step through, and suddenly the air slams cold into your lungs, making your skin prickle like you've been tossed into a snowstorm. Welcome to the Frigidarium, the cold plunge, the place where Romans proved they weren't just lounging aristocrats, but hard-edged survivors who could laugh at icy water as if it were nothing more than a refreshing sip of spring wine. The pool stretches out in front of you, clear and shimmering under torchlight. Though you know the second your toes hit it, you're going to question every life decision that brought you here. A couple of men dive in headfirst, splashing loudly, while others stand at the edge, pretending to have deep philosophical conversations, all while secretly trying to psych themselves up for the plunge. You glance at the steps, wondering if you should go slow or just cannonball like a reckless tourist in sandals. And either way, you know survival means not shivering like a leaf in a storm. Historians still debate whether the Frigidarium was about health or bravado. Was it truly some kind of medical therapy for circulation? Or was it just an ancient version of flexing on your neighbors by showing you could endure pain without flinching? Either way, here you are, and the only way forward is down. The shock is instant. Icy water clawing at your skin, goosebumps rising faster than rumors in the Senate, and your brain screaming at you to get out while every muscle stiffens like you just turned into a marble statue yourself. You can't help but imagine that somewhere, a toga-clad Roman is watching from the side, chuckling and saying, "Rookie." And here's the odd detail. Roman bathhouse water wasn't always crystal clean. It could be recycled through lead, pipes that added a touch of heavy metal toxicity to your refreshing plunge. So while you're busy trying to look tough, your body might also be soaking in the slow poison that made the Empire famous for both engineering genius and long-term health hazards. If that doesn't make you feel cozy, nothing will. You try to distract yourself by focusing on the atmosphere, the sharp echo of splashes against stone walls, the mist rolling low across the surface, and the occasional shriek of someone hitting the water too fast. It feels like an initiation, and you remember tales of medieval bathhouses, centuries later, where knights would do the same thing, jump into icy water as a test of manhood, sometimes even while carrying weapons, which seems both ridiculous and a great way to invent pneumonia. Fast forward to modern times, and you've got athletes dunking themselves into ice baths after training, swearing it helps recovery, though historians of medicine still debate whether that's science or just the placebo effect with extra frostbite. You think about those connections as your teeth chatter, and suddenly it strikes you how universal this ritual is. Humans everywhere have found some excuse to torture themselves with cold water, whether it's Roman citizens, Japanese samurai, in icy rivers, or Scandinavian winter swimmers cutting holes in frozen lakes. It's like global teamwork in making bad decisions. A man beside you dunks his head all the way under and comes up gasping, hair slicked back like a seal. And he looks so proud of himself you almost clap. You're trying not to laugh because your lips are numb, but the whole scene feels like an ancient version of a polar plunge fundraiser, except instead of raising money for charity, you're just raising eyebrows if you scream too loudly. You try to steady your breathing, reminding yourself that the trick is in the rhythm. Inhale, exhale, pretend you're fine. Maybe make a sarcastic comment, like, "Oh yeah, it's basically bathwater." That gets you a side eye from a guy who clearly doesn't appreciate your humor, but at least it distracts you from the pins and needles crawling up your arms. Somewhere in the foggy corners of the frigidarium, two men argue about gladiator matches, their voices bouncing off the tiles, and you catch yourself thinking how odd it is that deals, gossip, and even betrayals could start in a room where everyone is half naked and trying not to freeze. Survival here isn't just about handling the cold. It's about holding your composure, not letting your discomfort leak out into the social game, because the moment you look weak, you've lost status. And in Roman society, status was everything. You picture some senator back in the day, teeth chattering like yours, trying to negotiate alliances while pretending the icy water was no big deal, and you can't help but smirk. Remember, the bathhouse. Was the empire's Twitter feed loud, messy, and impossible to escape from without someone noticing? Finally, as you push yourself toward the steps, your body half frozen, you realize the frigidarium has taught you something simple but brutal. If you can survive this cold with a straight face, you can probably survive just about anything else. The bathhouse throws at you. You stumble dripping from the cold plunge, every muscle tight and trembling, and before you can catch your breath, you're being pulled forward by the wave of bodies drifting toward the caldarium, the hot chamber, the part of the bathhouse that feels like stepping straight into the mouth of a volcano. The door creaks open and a rush of steam gushes out, carrying the thick scent of heated stone and singed olive oil, and instantly your skin starts to prickle again, this time from the opposite extreme. It's like running from a snowstorm into a pizza oven, and survival here isn't about endurance in silence, but about knowing how to pace yourself, because if you sit too long, you'll feel your soul melting right out of your sandals. The room glows faintly in torchlight, the air shimmering with heat waves, and marble benches line the walls where men sprawl out like rotisserie chickens in various states of glistening. You find a place to sit, careful not to drop onto the hot stone too fast, because nothing says tourist like yelping when your thighs hit the seat. The sound in here is muffled, voices low and drowsy, conversations drifting like the steam itself politics, gossip, jokes about bad wine, even business deals murmured through clenched teeth as sweat trickles down foreheads. Historians still debate whether the caldarium was more about health or about spectacle, whether it was meant as therapy for the lungs or a place to show how long you could endure discomfort without fainting. Either way, you're sweating like you just ran a marathon without moving a step. Odd details float into your mind, like how Romans sometimes flavored the steam with herbs thyme, rosemary, even lavender, turning the room into something between a kitchen and a sauna, so you might smell like roasted lamb on your way out. And you can't help but laugh at the thought of someone walking home from the baths smelling like dinner. Across the centuries, hot chambers like this pop up everywhere. Turkish hammams with their intricate domes, Japanese onsens bubbling naturally. From volcanic springs, even medieval sweat lodges, where people sat half naked in huts to purge bad humors. The same human obsession repeats itself. If the cold doesn't shock you, then the heat will. And here you are, in the Roman version, feeling your lungs tighten as each breath drags in air so hot it feels like sipping soup. Your mind drifts, heavy, lulled by the hiss of water being poured onto heated tiles. The sudden burst of steam clouding the already murky room, and for a moment you feel as though you're dissolving into mist yourself. Then a man beside you slaps his chest, laughing, boasting about surviving longer than anyone else, his skin red as a boiled lobster. It's a strange competition, this survival of the sweatiest, but it's as much about pride as health. You shift, sweat dripping from your hair into your eyes, stinging, and you remember stories of athletes in ancient Greece using similar hot rooms before competitions, claiming it loosened their muscles, though historians still debate whether it helped or just made them dizzy. You imagine a wrestler stumbling out of the steam, collapsing before even stepping into the arena, and you can't help but chuckle, which earns you a curious glance from someone who probably thinks you're delirious already. But humor keeps you grounded, keeps you from floating away in this dreamlike haze where everything feels slippery and timeless. The trick is to notice the small things, the drip of condensation falling from the ceiling onto the stone floor with a soft hiss, the shuffle of feet adjusting for comfort, the way conversations ebb and flow like waves. Somewhere in the corner, a storyteller leans in close to his companions, whispering about an emperor who once collapsed dramatically in a caldarium, only to revive later and laugh it off as if fainting in front of half the city was just another Tuesday. You imagine the scene: attendants panicking, pouring cold water, maybe slapping the emperor's face, and the man waking up grinning, saying, "Don't worry, I was just testing you." That's the thing about survival here. It's not just about keeping your body intact, but about preserving your dignity, because losing consciousness in a public bathhouse was like losing your social armor. You shift again, and the stone bench feels almost alive with heat, pulsing against your skin, and for a fleeting second, you wonder if this is what bread feels like when it's shoved into an oven. A ridiculous thought, but it sticks, and you can't help smirking through the sweat. Around you, the Romans sit and endure, their bodies glistening, their eyes half shut, pretending that this is all easy, nothing to it, as if they aren't moments away from passing out. And you, sitting among them, realize that this room teaches survival in a different way, not in ice or combat, but in patience, endurance, and the art of looking calm while your brain whispers, "We're dying." You inhale again, esteem thick in your throat, and you tell yourself you'll last just a few more minutes, because in the bathhouse, every second you endure is another notch in your invisible scoreboard of status. And that's how you survive the heat games of the caldarium. You think you've made it through the worst of it, the cold shock of the frigidarium, and the furnace blast of the caldarium, but then you hear a scraping sound, sharp and metallic, and you realize survival here isn't just about temperature, about facing the strigil. Imagine this. You're slick with sweat and oil, your skin glistening like you've just been basted for roasting, and suddenly someone approaches holding what looks like a bent metal spatula. No soap, no gentle lather, just this curved blade dragging across your body to scrape away the dirt, the oil, and let's be honest, probably half your dignity. You can feel the tension rising already, the idea of standing there half naked while a stranger methodically scrapes your arms, your back, even behind your knees. The first pull of the strigil is shocking, a cold edge against overheated skin, leaving behind streaks of grime that remind you of cleaning a grill after a summer barbecue. It's oddly satisfying and horrifying at the same time. Historians still debate whether this ritual was more about hygiene or ritual purity, whether Romans actually believed it cleansed the body, or whether it was just another excuse to perform social theater in public. Either way, here you are, gritting your teeth while someone peels you like an orange. And here's your odd fact of the day. Some Romans collected the sweat and oil scraped off bodies, called strigmentum, and sold it as medicine or beauty cream. Yes, you heard that right. Recycled bathhouse gunk, rubbed on someone else's skin in the hope of curing a headache or smoothing wrinkles. You suddenly realize that luxury skincare trends haven't changed much. They've just gotten better branding. You picture some influencer 2,000 years ago, hawking artisanal gladiator sweat serum on a scroll, and you almost laugh out loud. The sensation is relentless scrape, 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 and it drags your mind to other times and places. You remember reading about medieval bathhouses where attendants used brushes made of horsehair to scrub away filth until the skin turned red And in Japanese Sento traditions, people even today scrub each other's backs as part of a bonding ritual. Everywhere, humans seem obsessed with scraping away what the body sheds, as though we're constantly trying to reveal our truer self underneath. But in the Roman bathhouse, it's not just about cleanliness. It's about survival, of pride. You stand tall, pretending the scrape doesn't sting, even when it feels like someone's erasing your skin with a bronze eraser. You crack a joke. Guess I'm half a pound lighter already, earning a chuckle from the man next to you, which helps break the tension. Jokes are survival too. Tiny shields against the vulnerability of being exposed and handled like a piece of meat. Somewhere across the room, an old storyteller whispers about a famous general who once refused the streetle, saying real warriors kept their sweat as proof of labor, while others claimed he only said that because he hated being touched. The story lingers, reminding you how even simple rituals carry political weight. To accept the scrape meant playing by the rules. To reject, it meant carving out a statement. And here you are, caught in the middle, deciding whether to play along or rebel in silence. The scrape continues, and with every pull you feel lighter, emptier, almost floating, as if the bathhouse itself is peeling away your layers until only the core of you remains. You start to understand why people came back day after day. It wasn't just the heat or the cold. It was the strange pleasure of being stripped down to nothing and rebuilt again. Still, you can't shake the thought of that jar of collected sweat on some apothecary's shelf, and it makes you shudder. Remember the crocodile poop sunscreen people in ancient Egypt used? Yeah, compared to that, bottled Romang sweat doesn't even sound like the worst idea humanity ever had. Your skin tingles as the final scrape runs along your arm, and for a moment, the world feels sharper, every nerve awake, every sense alert. A crowd murmurs, some laughing, some sighing, all bound together by this odd ritual that's equal parts hygiene, humiliation, and rebirth. And you, standing among them, realize that the bathhouse has stripped away more than grime. It's stripped away comfort, privacy, even the illusion of control. That's the hook, the secret lesson. Survival here isn't about muscle or wit. It's about letting go, enduring the scrape, and walking out on the other side still smirking. You think you're finally free after the scrape, your skin raw and glowing like polished marble. But survival in a Roman bathhouse isn't only about enduring extremes of hot and cold, or the indignities of hygiene rituals. It's also about what comes next, the temptations of food and wine that threaten to undo every ounce of discipline you've managed so far. You wander into the palestra courtyard, where tables are laid out with trays of figs, olives, hunks of bread, and pitchers of watered wine glistening in the lamplight. And suddenly the bathhouse feels less like a health club and more like the world's strangest buffet. You grab a fig, bite into it, and the sweetness explodes across your tongue. But you can't ignore the faint grit of dust that always seems to cling to fruit in the ancient world. A man across the table slurps wine noisily, grinning with purple-stained teeth, while another dips bread into olive oil so heavily that it drips down his arm. You're supposed to be recovering, but all you can think is how this feels like a trap. Like eating too much before diving back into the pools might make you sink like a stone. Historians still debate whether food was officially part of the bathhouse ritual, or if it was just a sneaky add-on by vendors who knew a captive market when they saw one. Either way, survival here means pacing yourself, knowing when to nibble and when to stop, because Romans were famous for indulgence. And here's your odd detail. Some bathhouses reportedly sold hot sausages right by the caldarium, so you could sweat buckets in the steam and then instantly clog your arteries with greasy meat. Imagine coming out glowing with wellness, only to balance it with a diet that would horrify any modern nutritionist. You can't help but laugh, because it's basically the same energy as going to a modern spa, and then hitting the drive-thru. On the way home, the noise around you rises, conversations bubbling louder as the wine flows. Deals are made over plates of olives, gossip spreads like wildfire, and jokes echo across the courtyard. You hear someone mention an emperor who supposedly overindulged in wine at the baths and had to be carried out by servants, limp as a wet rag, while others pretended not to notice. You picture the scene, attendants hauling him out by his armpits, trying not to laugh while the leader of the empire drooled on his toga. Fast forward a few centuries, and you find medieval banquets spilling into bathhouses, two German nobles drinking and eating while soaking in giant tubs, servants refilling. Cups as if nothing were strange about mixing gluttony with cleanliness. Even in the early modern period, travelers wrote about Eastern bathhouses where people brought in trays of pastries, turning the place into a steamy cafe. The line between survival and indulgence is thin everywhere, and you're walking it now, nibbling on bread while wondering if another cup of wine will push you past the point of comfort. The crowd around you laughs louder. A man tries to juggle dates and fails spectacularly. And for a moment, the bathhouse feels almost like a party, except you're aware that every indulgence has a price. Your stomach rumbles, not sure if it's happy or already regretting that second fig, and you realize that moderation might be the secret no one talks about. The challenge isn't just enduring cold and heat, it's resisting the lure of just one more. Someone near you claims the figs here give strength equal to an army ration. Another swears the olives sharpen the mind, and yet another insists that drinking wine before the strigil makes the scrape hurt less. Historians still debate how seriously Romans took these food theories, but standing here, you can tell the bathhouse doubled as a laboratory of superstition and half-baked science. You shake your head, sipping cautiously, feeling the warmth of watered wine curl into your stomach like a sleepy cat. And then you remember the oddest thing. Gladiators were sometimes nicknamed hordeari, barley men, because of their heavy grain-based diets, and there are accounts of their sweat being collected too, mixed with oil, and sold as some kind of health potion. It's a reminder that no matter the food or drink, someone always tried to bottle the essence of survival and sell it back to the desperate. You look at your own cup and laugh quietly. At least watered wine is less terrifying than gladiator. Juice. Still, as you set down your plate, you sense that this part of the ritual is just as dangerous as the plunge or the steam. Too much indulgence, and you're weakened, sluggish, open to mockery. The real survivors know when to stop, when to step away from the table, before appetite turns into ridicule. You wipe your hands, brush the crumbs from your chest, and steady yourself for what comes next. Because the bathhouse isn't done testing you, not by a long shot. You think you've earned a break after food and wine, but the bathhouse isn't just about physical tests or indulgence. It's also a theater of whispers, a stage where your survival depends on what you hear and what you pretend not to hear. As you step back into the misty corridors, the laughter dies down, replaced by the hushed tones of gossip curling like smoke through the steam. A pair of men lean close near the pool's edge, speaking in voices so low you almost miss the words mentions. Of debts, secret meetings, the hint of a senator's name wrapped in scandal. You realize quickly that the bathhouse doubles as the empire's rumor mill, and standing here half naked doesn't make anyone less dangerous. If anything, it makes them bolder. You sit down on a warm bench, careful to keep your eyes relaxed, as if you're too tired to notice anything, while your ears catch the murmurs swirling around you. A joke about a general's mistress, a complaint about grain prices, even the mention of someone being poisoned at a dinner, all tossed casually into the fog. Yet each word could topple reputations if repeated outside these walls. Historians still debate whether the bathhouse was truly democratic, a place where rich and poor mingled freely, or whether invisible lines of class still divided the pools. But what no one denies is that the bathhouse was political. Deals were struck here, alliances sealed with handshakes slick with oil, and sometimes enemies plotted while steam covered their expressions. You glance at a group in the corner, men, leaning close, their voices sharp despite the haze, and you wonder if you're watching history being shaped right in front of you. And then there's the danger, because for every whispered joke, there's a darker undertone. Stories tell of assassins slipping into the steam, knives hidden in towels, ready to strike when their target least expected it. The odd detail that sticks in your mind is that some Roman bathhouses reportedly had secret passages built for emperors, quick escape routes in case the heat of politics turned hotter than the caldarium itself. Imagine it, the most powerful man in the world sneaking barefoot through a damp corridor, dripping sweat, just to avoid an ambush from someone pretending to share a friendly soak. You almost laugh at the absurdity, but the image is too sharp power. Stripped down to its skin is still fragile. Across the centuries, bathhouses in other cultures carried the same double edge. In Ottoman hammams, women whispered secrets of marriages and rivalries, weaving alliances behind veils of steam. In Renaissance Italy, bathhouses became the backdrop for both love affairs and betrayals, their walls echoing with the same conspiracies. Even in the 19th century, American bathhouses earned reputations as places where deals and scandals unfolded together. The walls change, the architecture shifts, but the survival skill remains the same. Listen carefully, speak sparingly, and never reveal more than you must. You lean back, letting the steam curl around you, trying to look half asleep, but every word sharpens your nerves. A man near you mutters about taxes. Another grumbles about the emperor's latest project, and you realize survival isn't just physical endurance, it's social camouflage. The moment you look too curious, you become a target. The moment you repeat the wrong joke, you've chosen a side you didn't mean to choose. Humor helps again. You hear someone crack a line about the wine being so watered down it could swim in the pool, and you chuckle just enough to blend in. The laughter shields you, but you know it's fragile, like balancing on slick marble. The bathhouse has become a place where every laugh and glance is weighed, where gossip sticks to you like the steam on your skin, and where pretending not to notice might save your life. You remember the story of Agrippina, mother of Nero, rumored to have used bathhouse gossip to manipulate senators, twisting idle whispers into weapons. Whether it's true or not, it lingers as proof that survival here required more than just a strong constitution. It needed sharp instincts. You exhale slowly, letting the mist blur your vision, telling yourself that as long as you don't lean too close, don't laugh too loudly, and don't betray your thoughts, you'll make it through. But deep down, you sense that every corner of this place hides another test, another layer of danger beneath the sweat and stone. And right now, the greatest risk isn't slipping on wet marble. It's slipping with your tongue. You think you've learned the rules of survival. Here, endure the heat, brave the cold, eat carefully, keep your mouth shut when gossip swirls. But then another question rises like steam in your mind. Where did all of this come from? And how? Many cultures poured themselves into the very walls of this bathhouse. You step through an archway and suddenly notice details you hadn't paid attention to before. Mosaics of dolphins leaping across the tiles, columns shaped in styles borrowed. From Greece, little statues of Egyptian gods tucked into alcoves like souvenirs smuggled in from a distant land. The hook hits you hard. This bathhouse isn't purely Roman at all. It's a patchwork quilt of global influences, a melting pot disguised as steam. You stand there, sweating and blinking, realizing that survival here means more than fitting into Roman society. It means learning how to navigate the flood of foreign customs that seeped into this empire. Historians still debate whether Romans stole these ideas outright or whether they adapted them out of admiration. But either way, the bathhouse tells the story of cultures colliding. Take the caldarium itself, borrowed straight from Greek gymnasia, where athletes steam themselves before training, except here it's wrapped in Roman scale and pomp. Or the use of scented oils, echoing Egyptian traditions where people slathered themselves in perfumes, not only to smell pleasant, but to ward off the dry desert air. Oddly enough, one Egyptian ritual involved mixing crushed lotus petals into oil, and some Romans tried to copy it, though the results probably left more of a swamp smell than a floral one. And then there's the frigidarium plunge, you remember. That icy smack in your lungs, and realize that even this has parallels in Celtic river bathing rituals, where warriors dunked themselves in freezing water before battle, claiming it made their spirits fierce. The Roman Empire was a sponge, soaking up practices from Africa, Asia, Europe, and beyond, squeezing them all together into something new. And as you sit here dripping in borrowed traditions, you can't help but laugh. The bathhouse was basically the original fusion spa. A man next to you boasts that the pipes beneath your feet were engineered using techniques from the East, innovations whispered across trade routes that stretched farther than most Romans could imagine. You picture caravans winding across deserts, ships docking in ports, spices and secrets slipping into Roman hands. And suddenly, the bathhouse feels less like a local hangout and more like a global marketplace of ideas. Across centuries, this blending continued. Medieval hammams in North Africa and the Middle East took inspiration from Roman designs, while Japanese onsens carried entirely different philosophies, but echoed the same obsession with heat, ritual, and community. Even 19th century European spas, with their strange mineral waters and stiff social codes, trace their DNA back to this very moment where cultures mixed in steam. You lean back, eyes half shut, and think about how survival here required adaptability. If you clung too hard to one tradition, you missed the point. To thrive, you had to accept the strigil from Greece, the oils from Egypt, the engineering from the East, a plunge from the Celts, and let them all swirl together until you smelled like rosemary, sweat, and world history. The oddest detail sticks in your mind. Some Romans wore amulets of foreign gods into the bath, tiny charms against bad luck, even as they claimed loyalty to Jupiter and Mars. It was survival by hedging bets covering every possible angle. Because why risk angering a forgotten deity when you're sitting naked in slippery marble halls? You smirk at the thought, realizing humanity hasn't changed much. People today still try yoga from India, green tea from China, saunas from Finland, and wrap it all under the label of wellness, pretending it's one coherent system. The bathhouse beat them to it by 2,000 years. Around you, conversations echo, one man praising Greek philosophers, another bragging about Egyptian perfumes, and you realize that this place isn't just political, it's cultural survival training. To belong, you must nod at the right references, recognize the right gods, taste the right flavors. To fail is to be branded provincial, backward, a barbarian in a world that worships cosmopolitanism. And you, sitting in the mist, remind yourself to keep your ears open and your smile practiced, because survival now means more than keeping your body alive. It means knowing that every bead of sweat sliding down your arm carries not just Roman heat, but echoes of 100 other fires from lands far away. You stumble out of the last chamber, your skin tingling from oil and scrape, your head still heavy from steam and wine, and suddenly the air outside feels almost unreal, cool, and sharp against your face, as though you've walked from a dream. Back into the hard stones of the street. The bathhouse doors creak closed behind you, and for a moment you stand blinking under the torchlight, realizing that survival here wasn't just about the heat or the cold, not just about gossip or food, but about carrying what you've learned into the world beyond the steam. The hook is simple yet unsettling. You've survived the Roman bathhouse, but can you survive what comes after? The street is buzzing with voices, merchants closing stalls, children chasing one another through alleys, and you feel stripped bare, as if everyone can see you've been tested inside. Your mind drifts back to the plunge into icy water, to the suffocating heat, to the sting of the strigil, and you wonder how much of that was about health and how much was about endurance. Historians still debate whether the baths truly extended life or simply masked the wear of it, whether they preserved bodies or just distracted minds with ritual. Either way, you know they forged habits of survival that reached far beyond the marble walls. You remember stories from the Middle Ages of communal bathhouses where survival meant avoiding disease as much as sharing laughter, where priests warned against temptation, but people still crowded in, desperate for warmth and company. You think of Ottoman hammams where women used steam as cover for secret conversations that shaped marriages and alliances, or Japanese bathhouses where ritual cleansing became a form of spiritual armor. Even in the 19th century, spas in Europe promised cures through mineral waters, while American bathhouses mixed medicine with entertainment until they resembled cabarets in disguise. The odd detail that sticks with you is that some 20th century bathhouses even had coin-operated massage chairs beside the pools, proving that humanity never stops inventing awkward ways to mix survival, leisure, and commerce. You laugh softly at the thought maybe that's the true legacy of Rome. Not the empire, not the legions, but the strange persistence of places where heat, water, and gossip force us to face ourselves. As you walk through the darkened streets, you realize the lessons linger. Survival isn't about brute strength here. It's about flexibility, humor, endurance, and knowing when to shut your mouth and when to laugh at the right joke. It's about carrying yourself with calm, even when your body is screaming from cold or heat. It's about knowing that even in slippery, half-naked vulnerability, dignity can be preserved with the right smirk, the right shrug. And perhaps most of all, it's about understanding that every bathhouse is a mirror of the world outside, full of politics, indulgence, danger, and community, all wrapped in steam. You take one last breath, the cool air filling your lungs with relief, and tell yourself you've passed the test. But deep down you know the game never really ends, because survival isn't locked inside marble halls. It follows you into every crowded street, every whispered rumor, every shared meal, every sudden plunge into the unexpected. The bathhouse was just training. The rest of life is the real challenge. Now slow down. Let the steam fade in your imagination. Let the clamor of the Roman streets dissolve into something softer. Picture the last drops of water sliding from your skin, the torchlight blurring into a hazy glow, the world outside the bathhouse melting into silence. Your breath is steady now, warm and heavy, and your body feels like it's sinking into cushions, safe and still. The noises of the crowd drift farther away until there. Only a faint hum, then nothing at all. You're not standing in marble halls anymore. You're floating in a quiet pool where the water holds you gently, rocking you like the simplest lullaby. The rules, the gossip, the struggles, they all blur out of focus, leaving only calm. Let the warmth spread, let the stillness wrap around. You, let the story dissolve into silence. Good night. End of script. Good night.